You're watching Free Speech TV.
From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
The United Nations is beyond reform. It's beyond patchwork. It's the most important organization in the world to help us save the human species and Mother Earth. But it has to be reinvented.
Father Miguel de Soto, the former president of the United Nations General Assembly and former foreign minister of Nicaragua. He joins us to talk about the failures of the UN, the importance of Bolivia's World People's Conference on Climate Change, and why Latin America doesn't need the United States. Then we pay a visit to Radio Gente, the Cochabamba radio station that airs Democracy Now! In Spanish. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The U.S. Coast Guard has abandoned its search for 11 workers missing since last week's Gulf of Mexico oil rig disaster, as efforts center around containing a major oil spill. The rig caught fire off the Louisiana coast Tuesday before sinking 2 days later. Around 1,000 barrels of oil are leaking into the Gulf each day. The rig's operator, BP, says it could take up to 3 months to stop the spill. If the 11 missing workers are confirmed dead, it would be the deadliest U.S. platform explosion in over 40 years. Immigrant rights groups are urging federal intervention to counter a newly enacted measure in Arizona that forces police officers to determine the immigration status of someone they suspect of being an undocumented immigrant. Republican Governor Jan Brewer signed the bill Friday following its approval in the state legislature earlier in the week. Opponents call it the harshest anti-immigrant measure in the country and a license for racial profiling. Shortly after adding her signature, Brewer said she thinks the measure, quote, is what's best for Arizona.
I've decided to sign Senate Bill 1070 into law because, though many people disagree, I firmly believe it represents what's best for Arizona.
As Brewer spoke, thousands of protesters rallied outside the state capitol. Democratic Congressmember Raul Grijalva urged federal non-cooperation with the new law.
We have insisted on non-cooperation with this state law by the federal government. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Immigration is a federal law. It has supremacy. And if our federal government tells the state of Arizona, you can have the law, we are not detaining, we are not processing, we are not accessing your law, then it is moot. And I think that is the next step, is the non-cooperation.
Another major protest was held Sunday. At the White House, President Obama denounced the bill and suggested the federal government could intervene.
Indeed, our failure to act responsibly at the federal level will only open the door to irresponsibility by others. And that includes, for example, the recent efforts in Arizona, which threaten to undermine basic notions of fairness that we cherish as Americans, as well as the trust between police and their communities that is so crucial to keeping us safe. In fact, I've instructed members of my administration to closely monitor the situation and examine the civil rights and other implications of this legislation.
The Senate climate bill is in limbo after Republican co-sponsor Lindsey Graham of South Carolina withdrew his support. On Saturday, Graham said he no longer backs the measure because Democrats want to advance an immigration bill first. Graham and co-sponsors, Democratic Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts and Independent Senator Joe Lieberman of Connecticut, have been scheduled to unveil the climate measure today. Graham says he thinks Democrats are pushing for immigration reform to mobilize Hispanic voters and wants Democrats to pledge they'll first tackle the climate bill. In a statement, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid rejected Graham's claims and said he hopes to pass both climate and immigration legislation by the end of the year. Amidst the wrangling on Capitol Hill, thousands of people gathered on the National Mall Sunday to back passage of a robust climate bill. The Earth Day Network organized the rally to cap a week-long series of events marking Earth Day's 40th year.
Well, I think Congress needs to stop paying attention to what corporations want, what oil companies want, what coal industry wants, and start actually doing what the American people need them to do, which is create legislation that spends our tax dollars on sustainable jobs, that create energy for people here in America without creating the pollution and the hazardous waste and all of the other things that come with listening to oil companies who say, hey, we're making money. Don't take away our oil.
Before Senator Graham's announcement, the environmental group Greenpeace had announced its opposition to the proposed legislation. In a statement, Greenpeace said, quote, although we appreciate the Senate's efforts to reduce global warming pollution, it's clear that polluter lobbyists have succeeded in hijacking this climate policy initiative and undermined the ambitious action necessary. You can go to our website at democracynow.org, where last week on Earth Day, we spoke with Daphne Weisham of the Institute for Policy Studies, and you can see, watch, listen to, and read her criticism as well. That's democracynow.org. President Obama was in West Virginia Sunday for a memorial honoring the 29 miners who died in the Massey Energy Upper Big Branch mine disaster earlier this month. Obama singled out Massey for failing to prevent the disaster, calling the explosion, quote, a failure first and foremost of management. Speaking before a crowd of several thousand, Obama called for tightening safety standards at U.S. mines.
How can we fail them? How can a nation that relies on its miners not do everything in its power to protect them? How can we let anyone in this country put their lives at risk by simply showing up to work, by simply pursuing the American dream? We cannot bring back the 29 men we lost. They are with the Lord now. Our task here on earth is to save lives from being lost in another such tragedy.
Later in the day, an armed man was arrested at a North Carolina airport shortly after President Obama departed on Air Force One back to Washington. The suspect, Joseph Sean McVeigh, was carrying a gun and driving a vehicle equipped with police gear. McVeigh reportedly told police officers he wanted to see President Obama. In Iraq, at least 72 people were killed on Friday when a series of coordinated bombings struck Shiite areas of Baghdad. The blasts hit mosques, homes, and shops near the office of the leading Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. It was the deadliest attack Iraq has seen in years. It comes 4 days after the U.S. and Iraqi governments announced the killing of 2 top leaders with the group al-Qaeda in Iraq. On Sunday, an al-Qaeda front group confirmed the leaders' deaths but vowed to continue its fight. Afghan protesters set a convoy of 10 NATO supply vehicles ablaze Sunday, hours after the alleged killing of 3 civilians in a U.S. raid. A relative said the victims were shot dead when U.S. stormed their home overnight. The U.S.-led NATO force says the victims were insurgents. In other Afghan war news, NATO foreign ministers held talks in Estonia Friday. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said the U.S. has narrowed the gap with allies on sending additional troops.
We've actually been heartened by the response from all of our allies and partners. We started off with a significant gap, and we have narrowed it considerably. The combined new commitments from our NATO ISAF allies is about 10,000 in troops and trainers and mentors.
In Israel and the occupied territories, clashes erupted in East Jerusalem Sunday after a group of Israeli settlers held a march through the Palestinian neighborhood of Silwan. Organizers say they called the rally to affirm Israeli sovereignty over all of Jerusalem. Meanwhile, in Gaza, 2 Palestinians and a Maltese activist were wounded when Israeli troops opened fire on a nonviolent protest. The activist, Bianca Zamet, is a member of the International Solidarity Movement, which has long been targeted by Israeli troops.